Problem: British Petroleum's Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Reaction: coming soon. Solution: coming soon. But we do know that years ago BP did not spend the extra 500 grand on an acoustic switch system. They are legally required to use this fail-safe system in many other countries like Norway, but they did not have to in the United States. We do know we have problems with revolving doors between the most profitable industries and government offices. We do know that Goldman Sachs sold 43% of its BP shares during the first quarter of 2010. We do know that BP CEO Tony Hayward sold 1.4 million pounds of his BP shares, one-third of his holdings, just 35 days before the disaster. We do know that BP put consistent intentional pressure to rush the pace beyond safe drilling practices and continued despite reported problems with the blowout preventer. But maybe the most troubling thing is the response. I understand that BP is responsible for the cleanup, but they were ones reckless enough to cause this situation in the first place. Why would we trust them with the physical logistics of capturing and cleaning the oil? Is that not our nation's oil and many nations' ecosystems? So I can understand Obama's hands-off approach to a point, but after a week or two showing only signs of very poor cleanup work, it seems rational to do all we can to help and send BP the bill. And why in the world would our government even allow BP to react to this record-breaking oil spill of toxic crude oil by adding record-breaking levels of Corexit to the mix? Corexit is a product line of solvents used to disperse oil, but it too is highly toxic, and it's currently banned in the United Kingdom. Independent reporters in the Gulf have sent samples to scientific labs and got these results.
ATVs and shit.
Materials in these packages.
Good morning, world. We're on the corner of Toulouse and Bourbon Street in New Orleans here. We just got back from Grand Isle, went and got these samples. It was pretty amazing. We ran into a couple of workers that were working on the boats, some safety officers, which will remain nameless, and they invited us to go have a beer at the local bar out there in Grand Isle. And after a couple of beers, they introduced us to one of their co-workers who had collected oil 20 miles out on his boat, and had given us a sample straight out. Now all we can do is send these out and get some answers. You know, we got this one from the shore break in Grand Isle. We got this one from the rock jetty in Grand Isle, right there at the very end. They call it the end of the world, actually, which is ironic, but that's where we were. And then this is the one that we got from 20 miles out. You can see the oil blob right there.
There is a lot of something that is not oil in the oil booger, if you will, inside the water sample, and that's why it wasn't acting really like oil. Now, I think a big clue was were the results for the propane dial. Now, I have a guesstimate. Well, I have an estimate here of how much is in there. Now, the number I came up with was 430 parts per million. Okay, it's actually a very large number for propane diol in water. Okay, that's how much we're getting from the water.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Well, let me put it this way: the propane diol is actually part of Corexit. Okay, so if I'm measuring 430 parts per million of propane diol in water, in the water itself, this is just one part of Corexit. The Corexit itself has to be a much bigger number. And it turns out that the toxic level for Corexit for fish is 25 parts per million. So we're measuring at least 400, and 25 is toxic in water. And if you're in the presence of oil, and the fish encounters oil with mixed in with Corexit, it drops down to 2.6 parts per million as being toxic. So the sample you handed me was probably about 150 times the toxic level for fish. How's that for a starter?
You're kidding me.
No, I am not kidding you. So that's just for the propane dial. Now that means the fact that the propane dial is in the water means that the other compounds of Corexit must also be in the water. And that means this water is, well, like I said, the fact that it was mixed with oil, that you had a sample there with oil in it, means that the level of Corexit in that water was about 150 times the toxic level for fish. And for people, that also certainly means that the number is way too high. From what I'm seeing here, that you don't even have to see the oil to be exposed to Corexit, because the Corexit is in the water, not only in the oil, it's in the water itself. Because this GC I ran, I drew away from the oil. I did not get oil into the sample. It was just water. So I put just water in the machine. I'm getting 430 parts per million propylene glycol. And then, of course, the propylene glycol is considered to be a minor component, and that's the stuff I was measuring. The propylene glycol itself is 430 parts per million. That's just the propylene glycol. That's not the others. That has to be even higher. If you add up all the components, that water was just jammed with stuff. The thing is that the level you find on the surface is many times higher than was needed to kill fish. This stuff is hitting the beaches and is coming up as sea spray, and people are breathing it. And that can explain, if you're swimming in this stuff, if you're breathing this stuff, you're swallowing this stuff, you're going to have problems. It reminds me, when I'm thinking about those commercials from the governor of Florida saying, "Don't worry, everything's fine, come on down." Okay, that reminds me of that time that the EPA told the people at Ground Zero that there was no asbestos in the air, when there was. Okay, I don't know where they're getting their information, but this water is poisonous.
Look, I sure don't have all the facts on this spill yet, but it smells more than fishy. There seems to have been no real effort to prevent this crisis from happening, or a meaningful cleanup. While there are red flags pointing towards high-level foreknowledge, and most solutions offered have made the problem worse, either by increasing toxicity, or wasting time, or just bearing the problem for some poor sap to find later. So let us only support truly rational and appropriate solutions. If the administration or Congress ever decide to use this crisis to move a political agenda forward, there is enough evidence here to treat all that has happened as somewhat intentional, which changes how we should react. I do not support environmental solutions which rely only on creating new carbon-based Ponzi schemes, but more on modern environmentalism will come in an upcoming episode. Alright, future problem. Internet false flag. Future reaction. Need for greater cybersecurity. Future solution. Relative censorship of the internet. Future problem. Middle East, axis of evil, false flag terrorist attack. Again. Future reaction. Yes, we believe you, the national security complex, whatever you say regarding who attacked us, as you have no vested interest. Future solution. Bomb, then invade Iran, Syria, North Korea, maybe Iraq again, whatever. Another steaming hot democracy delivered on time. Mission accomplished. problem